we're back. We are back. Brilliant. Sorry about that. Some sort of encoding error. Stopped it. Hopefully everyone comes back to. I'm just gonna put out a tweet saying stream went down, but we're back up now. We'll give this a couple of minutes. Let me just put up a backup screen just to let people filter in. Alright, there we are. Let's just fucking keep going. Can't even remember what I was talking about. I'll let some people filter in before the heat won that round. That's right. Fucking heat. We'll get the heat. The heat's just trying to keep us down. The oppressive heat. This is, and I don't say this lightly, the worst impact of global warming is that my stream went down. And I know there are bad impacts of global warming, but this one might be the worst. I've not even described what type of wine I'm drinking tonight. I guess we'll do that while we wait for folk to filter back in. Assuming folk will filter back in. We'll get back to unions in a second, because I do have something to say about the weird way the media or the weird way the fucking Labour right, left liberals are dealing with Mike Lynch's media appearances. Because I think it's been odd in some of the ways that they've been dealing with that. Fucking Piers Morgan and global warming working hand in hand to stop me from streaming. That's what they don't want you to do. So I forgot to do this at the start. Can't believe I forgot to do this. We have rituals here. We do things properly on this stream, and I forgot to say what the type of wine is. It's another one I think it's the same one as last week actually. It is yeah, it was the same one as last time. The Chenin Blanc, from South Africa, I think. Wine of South Africa, but in Wellington. I thought Wellington was in New Zealand, but there must be one in South Africa too. 12.5%. On deal from £8.50 down to £6.90, so we're all doing well there. Yeah, it looks like we got some fucking people in, so we can start actually talking about the real stuff again. Oh, I'm already tasting this. I will finish this wine because I don't like wasting stuff, and if I leave it in the fridge, and you know, who wants one glass of wine? Hey Altair, we're all back. We're doing brilliantly. But I am thinking about my gin and tonic now. Yeah, so, what was I talking about? About Mike Lynch and the RMT. Oh, you got a wee hint of leg there. So there's been this weird sort of Piers Morgan, the crown prince of crime. To be honest, I don't think Piers Morgan has the clout to be a clown prince of crime. Yeah, so there's a weird thing where like people on left liberal, maybe some of the more centrist as well, parts of beat the meat. Yeah, wait, tinfoil Bean, you managed to identify the joke. yeah, there's sort of the left liberal figures and the centrists are trying to replicate um fucking Mike Lynch's performances on the media, and they really don't understand what it is that makes him effective, and it's not something that you can train into someone. SMERT, yep. Um, like you, the reason that it's effective is because he is on the side of organised labour, has a degree of power behind him, and has been talking about this stuff with massive expertise for decades, and you can't really replicate. Well, I mean, one of the sort of I keep seeing people try to connect the RMTs to Brexit. I mean, they have. I think they supported Brexit, maybe, or Mike Lynch did or something. And part of that is to do with the sort of particularities of real contracts within the EU, and because the EU is a neoliberal fucking body, and the RMT is a famously kind of left-wing trade union, they don't like the EU. It's not that complicated. I like seeing cool bald guys, so I'm just really happy for this. Yeah, it's nice to see a bald guy who's not politically bald. Yeah, the way that the media often works is to get these people who are columnists or journalists, even fucking the way politics works. You get like ministers and junior ministers who don't understand the areas in which they are creating laws over. Civil servants really are the ones who understand the areas in which politicians work in, and even then it's sometimes iffy. But politicians don't really. They get moved around briefs all the time. They don't understand what's going on. So you watch someone like Mike Lynch, who's an expert in his field of knowledge with a huge degree of like worker power behind him, forceful worker power behind him, patiently explaining ABCs to people who have no idea what they're talking about, but are extremely confident because they are from the same place largely. They're all friends with each other. They all went to the same universities and they went to the same balls with each other. And he tears them apart because he just talks like a person who understands what they're talking about at them. And then you get these fucking left liberals in the Labour Party or centrists within the Guardian being like, oh well, how are we going to replicate this kind of media strategy with other people, with MPs in the Labour Party? You can't. It's not how it works, and it's not gonna work. And you people make me sick. Yeah. I should end more sentences on "you people make me sick." What are my thoughts on a left-wing EU nano superstructure? I'm not sure what that question is. Do you mean like what are the chances of building the EU into something which is left-wing in any way? An EU style left-wing. I mean, the concept of some sort of. I mean, I probably not. I don't think it's something that's worth pursuing as in a socialist sort of way. You're sort of getting into the line of super, like a super and extra governmental organization. I think like we are looking. The point of what we do is to break down the structures of the world and build new ones. And I don't think that we could draw a comparison. I don't think something like the EU would or should exist within a post-capitalist system, because it's built on particular assumptions about like blocks, about the state, about Western European modernity, to fucking crib some phrases from some of my friends. So it's probably not something that's worth pursuing on the left. Like it's a sort of the question of like a left wing or the left wing case for Brexit is a difficult one, not because of like the critiques of the EU, not because the EU is shit in its foundational construction. It is a pile of shit that maintains fucking white supremacy, maintains tight border controls in Fortress Europe, maintains fucking neoliberal trading blocks. The whole purpose of it is to maintain trading blocks, and it's a sort of very ordoliberal, neoliberal construction. So the case against it from the left wing perspective is strong. In the case of the specific Brexit vote, like the difficulty there is that was entirely led by a far right movement, nationalist movement, which I argue is still neoliberal in its construction as well, but just a sort of more right wing edge to it. What was my point? Oh yeah, so when you get people like criticising the RMT, cause the RMT have a good principled stance against the EU, but within the milieu of a movement which is supporting like far right politics, it's always going to look bad for them. All that you can sort of do from the outside is be like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if they support Brexit or if they supported Brexit. They weren't instrumental in any of the stuff that's happening, any of the shit that's happening. They have a strong, like, it makes sense. Fuck the EU. It's a bad group, bad organisation, and it's a bad structure, and it needs to be torn down. The questions are how that's done. As a stepping stone, we may need to some form of organising a larger scale to get us there. My thoughts. I don't know. I think that's a sort of question of. I think you can get into the usefulness of more anarchist forms of praxis there, or anarchist sort of edged praxis there. And it kind of gets, or maybe not even anarchist, maybe just straight Marxist, like the thinking a lot about stuff like this and the utility of grabbing the state ready-made, things like that, which are sort of themes that we'll be going over in the video on Adam Conover's show. I don't think that we could. The amount that it would take to construct a supra-government organisation from the ground up that is in some way not prohibitive to a socialist development seems to me like a difficult thing to do that would require immense amount of organisation for I'm not sure what purpose. Yeah, I don't think it would be something that would be worth pursuing. It's certainly not something that I would put like an analytical or sort of praxeological priority for me. It's kind of weird to point the Brexit finger at the Union versus the right wing. Like, yeah, I mean, everybody, like all that stuff is very much settled. Like, Tories voted for it. Older voters voted for it. It wasn't left wing people at all. It doesn't really matter. I will say I'm somewhat surprised, given the whole world neoliberalism. I'm kind of surprised that borders between the global north countries aren't more open at this stage. I'm not surprised that the borders of the global north aren't open right now, because some of the one of the sort of essential parts of neoliberalism is creating a kind of like the way that a border works is by making by controlling labour markets and controlling people moving into particular areas, controlling like the reason why migrant labour gets used so much for social reproductive labour is because it's very cheap and precarious. You can get chucked out at any moment if you're there illegally, even if you're there legally. So that is the tight bordering works very well for creating this kind of two-tiered proletariat. between the global north and the global south, and that is essential. That's very, very useful for neoliberalism. And then you get into the sort of ideological aspects of it. You look at the road to serfdom and the amount that Hayek talks about protecting a walled-off Europe, because Europe, or the Anglo-Saxons that they talks about, the Anglo-Saxon culture and race is more sort of politically ready for liberalism in a fucking classic liberal racist way. So it's sort of both economically and ideologically it makes sense to wall the global north off to some extent from the global south. Institutions like the EU are imperialist and colonialist in design and intention. So I don't think Tim Philippine was asking if the specific EU was salvageable. I think the question was more about, would we need a similar sort of extra state system to administer, to exist. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think so. I mean, capital will fight for violence. It just will. That's what's gonna happen, and what happens every day. I simply don't think that it's practically, or probably, yeah, I don't think it's practically possible to build something of comparable strength to the EU within a capitalist system for it to resist something like that. And it would require a lot. Like, it's quite an abstract sort of construction, like beyond the politics of this moment. For something, I guess you could maybe argue that if there was simultaneous revolution among all the EU countries, that they could form a kind of USSR situation within Europe. But that's, I don't know, it's an abstracted sort of idea. And I'm not sure it's something like. Crucially, I think it's not something that anyone on the ground is really talking about. I tend, in questions of abstraction like that, I tend to move back to what are people in radical movements doing and demanding, and that is not something I've ever seen done or demanded, worked towards from radical movements on the ground. So it wouldn't be something that I would necessarily try to impose to build, I guess. But again, I mean, it's quite an abstract sort of thing to talk about. Leftism can't just construct a dual power equitable to the EU with where it is. I mean, like. Yeah, I mean, I think we all basically agree with that. Oh my god, this wine tasted better with grapes to chill it down. Borders are violence, and it's a complex. I mean, it's not something I'd ever really thought about or considered. Tim Philippines, these are just off the dome thoughts. I was at the anti-borders protest last week in London, which was a very uplifting kind of moment. I think the way the entire couple days there with the anti-raid protest in London, followed by the protest outside the Home Office, and followed by the massive amounts of work done by activists on the ground to stop the Rwandan flights. For anyone who doesn't know it, people not from the UK might not have heard about this, so it's worth explaining, worth talking about. So the UK has come up with a new policy for warehousing asylum seekers, basically refugees, people who are making asylum applications in the UK. And that plan is to ship them to Rwanda, where they will be kept in camps, and probably will be forced to apply for asylum in Rwanda. They say that won't happen, but that probably what happened. Um, and the first of those flights that were shipping these refugees out of the UK was due on last Tuesday, not the Tuesday just been, the one before, and due to a huge amount of political of direct action blocking roads, as well as some work by lawyers and some work by the EU Court of Human Rights, the Court of Justice, which is a not part of the EU but is like a European Court of Human Rights, which legal human rights stuff basically the UK is subject to. After all these appeals, where the UK courts found that it was constitutional, it was within the law to ship refugees off to Rwanda, which, to be clear, is not. That's not legal. That's like that is not a legal thing to do. There is clear international law about this, but the UK judges, probably because they tend to be fucking old, rich, white Tories, decided against that. And it was only once it reached the ECJ that finally there was an injunction to stop it. And it was a great moment. It's been a fucking great few weeks for showing the power of direct action, both in communities and in unions. Yeah, borders are violent. Yeah, borders are inherently violent. There's no way to cut around that. Noam Chomsky's kid has got a book on. I didn't even know Noam Chomsky's kid was in fucking the game of publishing books on that. Yeah, it's been a good week for showing the power of community and direct action and union action as well. Rosencrantz, that fucking op-ed. I'm gonna get to that in 1 second. That op-ed. Hey, One Dime, welcome. We were just talking about the RMT strikes, and then talking about the way that direct action in the UK stopped the flights shipping refugees to Rwanda. That wasn't Zizek's op-ed. Zizek's op-ed is a different op-ed. I didn't see. It's just Zizek being fucking a provocative liberal again, isn't it? Fucking. But this op-ed was about. I think it could have been Ian Dunt, or whatever. One of the Ians could have been one of them, or one of the fucking liberals who was talking about the flights to Rwanda. Were always a distraction, to distract away from more important things, apparently, or to throw red meat to the base of the Tory party, and all of that is just that's liberals not understanding the world, that sort of shit. Because while that shit does play well with Tory voters, because if you're voting Tory, you're a bad person doing a bad thing. The impetus to do this stuff is not because it's a red meat issue for their voters. It's because of the construction of the fucking increasingly far right and fascistic neoliberal state, which has to continually reproduce white supremacy on a global scale, and continue this sort of violent bordering regime. That's why it happened, not because they had to throw fucking red meat to their base. I hate that shit so much. And you got the same sort of thing with the stuff about how stopping the Rwandan flights, we gave an opportunity for the Tories to get rid of the Human Rights Act, and that's fucking bullshit as well. Like, I know the Tories have always wanted to get rid of the Human Rights Act, and they will have done anything to do that. That they did it at this time is just like, this is the time that they had the power to do it. Where people are like, oh, this is what the game was always. No, this was not always the game. They want to put people in camps in Rwanda because they're a white supremacist organization structure, and it's Yeah, no, they've been trying to get the Tories have been trying to get rid of the Human Rights Act since like 2005. It's, I mean, the Human Rights Act isn't even itself a particularly powerful thing. It's not hugely accessible to people. It's not. It's a very sort of, you know, it's a legal document. It has a very limited use, but that limited use is already unacceptable to the Tories. So they've been trying to get rid of it since like 2005. I think Cameron's been trying to get rid of it for a long time. Yeah, so it's, you know, it's bullshit. I was very sometimes I watch the news and that's a mistake. And I was watching it was the day that they decided that they were that it emerged that the Tories were wanting to get rid of the Human Rights Act and replace it with a Bill of Rights. And they had Emily Thornberry on, Labour politician. She's normally like, she's not my politics by any means, but she's at least competent enough. And they had her on, and they were like, what do you make of this? And she goes into this big spiel about all these different things, and none of it really relevant to what's going on. I was just sitting watching it going, all you need to say to this is that the Tories want to chip away at any human rights, any conception of human rights within the law. They want to lessen that. They want to lessen your ability to realise any objection to their increasing power. And all you need to say is the only reason to get rid of the Human Rights Act is because you want to lessen human rights. And they just couldn't say that. And it's one of those things, and you're just like, are these people not just, they're not just bad politically, but they're bad at politics. And you're just like, none of this is hard. Like, it's not that hard to just say the Tories want to get rid of the Human Rights Act because they want to impose a bunch of more authoritarian shit. Like, it's not a hard thing to say. I was bemused by that. Alright. We finished another glass. Oh, Marina Hyde, was it? Oh, fuck's sake. Fucking Marina Hyde. All these people are Marina Hyde's one of the more annoying ones because she writes the most sort of cloyingly unfunny shit, and it's like pitched as a sort of joke. Just joke. Oh, it's so erudite, so droll. Fucking joke stuff. And none of it is funny. Like, I know it's hard to make jokes about how the world's terrible. Look at my content. It's not very funny. It's fucking there, and the world is terrible, and we tried to get through it. But fucking Marina Hyde, with her sort of smug, cloying, liberal jokes, and putting out stuff like that, it's like, what the every time she puts out an article, you get all these liberals like, oh, it's a very droll, it's a very funny, I wish I'd thought of calling Boris Johnson Twaticus cunt or something. It's like, what are you talking about? Have none of you had a funny conversation in your lives? I've become agitated because that annoyed me. I'm gonna pour myself a wine. We're gonna do another song. Fucking Marina Hyde. It's okay. I've become agitated, but I've calmed down. Do the Tories get the same treatment as the GOP? Not really. Not the sort of the Tories get the treatment for the Tories is less like champions of freedom and more like, we are the party of economic stability. We're the ones who know how to deal with the pocketbook of the country, that sort of shit. Whereas Labour are the profligate spenders who will, ruin the economy. That's the sort of treatment that the Tories get. You can see parts of that sort of Americanized discourse filter through to some of the more right-wing Tories where they talk about freedom, but it tends to sit kind of weirdly in the particularities of British racism and British conceptions of freedom and that. I'm gonna tune this guitar first because, like I said, it's a new string. Okay. If you aren't agitated, you aren't paying attention. Big small government doesn't really map onto European countries broadly. I don't think that's quite true. The sort of the discourse around it is slightly different, but I can't speak strongly to other countries, but the big small government thing does get played a lot in Britain as well. Okay, let's see what fucking tunes I can come out with. If anyone's got any suggestions for something I want to try, fire it in the chat now. I quite like this. This is some nice chill shit. We're getting some Mark Rebellier shit here. I've got right now is a JTC drum looper for the loops. I've got a hardwire delay and reverb pedal, which used to be my loop pedal as well. It's got a 30-second loop, it's not very good. And I've got a ultra octaver for the bass, which is good. That only costs like 20 quid for that. I've got two distortion boxes, one governor and one OS1, which is the one I use more. hi to Chill Goblin. Everyone say hi. Make him feel welcome, because unlike his stream, there's only friends here. There are no enemies, and nobody says that people are mortal enemies on this stream. We're all just friends here. So everyone say hi and be very nice to Chill Goblin. Trust you're satisfied, Chill Goblin. We do love a Chill Goblin here. What happened to Beat the Heat 1? Beat the Heat 1 died. The Heat won. We beat the Heat 1, but we came back stronger, and isn't that all that matters? They can take us down, they can knock us down, but we get back up again. The Heat can beat us once, but we'll beat the Heat eventually. Okay, I admit the guitar bite me, because we've all seen what happens when someone builds a guitar after opening a bottle. But John's confidence is well earned. I fucking drink to that. But the half of this stream is just an excuse for me to have fun and muck around with loops. So good or bad, it's just part of the fun, isn't it? Yeah, the grapes died. I'm afraid we didn't have any grapes. The Heat beat the grapes as well, because to be honest, I stepped out of the swimming pool this afternoon, and it was so hot. I was like, oh god, I better get in, because all my sunscreen had been obviously washed away in the swimming pool. Happy Thursday, Annie Olsen, welcome. I'm glad you're satisfied, James. Building class consciousness. Ooh, that is an interesting and heavy question. Yeah, I get knocked down, and you're never gonna keep me down. Incidentally, Chill Goblin has a good video on Punk, which features Chumbawamba. So if you've not, after this stream, not during this stream of course, because I need you all here right now, you should watch his video on Punk and Chumbawamba if you haven't already. So I don't know enough about the only Chumbawamba song I know is I get knocked down and I get up again. I'm sorry, I don't know enough about Chumbawamba to do a good parody. As someone new to film, I'm kind of frustrated that aside from simple socioeconomic standpoint, I don't know what this means, what it looks like, and what ends it serves. Yeah, I get that. So, I mean, the question of class consciousness is a simple question which allies a much like a dense theoretical sort of area which I can't get into right now because one, I'm slightly drunk, and two, I've not done enough reading to be comfortable like completely filling up on the topic. But basically, the distinction between class formation and class consciousness is one that's quite important within the literature, where class formation, Badiou has quite a good a description of class formation, where class formation is just simply a rupture between different segments of the population defined by their relation to capital. So you have a wide array of different people with different social relations to capital, which can all be rightly described as a class or various expressions of class politics. But class consciousness is the perspective at like the point at which all these different sort of segmented areas and different relations to capital become solidified within a notion of shared politics, essentially shared progress towards something more. So a good example of something which I'm going to use this example. It might be controversial, but let's say the example of race formation under capitalism. Let's say the construction of black nationalism under capitalism. You could argue is a form of class consciousness because it's a crystallization of different but similar relations to capital under a singular identity, and that being blackness in relation to capital. And in that point, I would say that's a form of class consciousness. Hey, Sinan, what's going on? We're just chilling out. On the last of my wine, gonna get a gin and tonic after this, and I'm fucking excited about that. And we've been appreciating Mike Lynch, and I've been butchering class consciousness because I'm slightly drunk and not done enough reading to come up on that. But you know, we'll get through. And talk about Chumbawamba as well. Shared material interest, Aiden, is an interesting one because one of those distinctions, and if we keep the sort of notion of race at play here, one of the distinctions between what is a shared material interest in those cases, because when people talk about hey, well done, Sinan, that's good, 100 quid for a strike fund is fucking all great. That's some powerful stuff. Yeah, so if we talk about say in the context of America, and you have things like Du Bois' concept of the wages of whiteness, there is a material, like people tend to view things like the wages of whiteness as or like whiteness and the benefits accrued of whiteness as a sort of ideological superstructure to an economic base, but that's not really the case, because white workers get a material benefit from white supremacy. Of course they do. So like in the same way that workers in the global north get a benefit from being the labour fucking aristocracy of the world in terms of like relation between the US and the global south. So there is a material interest there, but I think that there's fucking camera is making me glow. But there's different material interest, because of course it is a greater material interest to abolish capitalism and live freely. But these things are conflicted, so shared material interest isn't always a simple sort of heuristic for understanding class consciousness. It probably needs more than that, more than just sort of I'm fucking glowing right now. This is what I look like in direct sunlight. People can't look directly at me. I'm like a fucking... Come on. I can't think of a specific place that is good for the question of class consciousness in terms of reading. Yeah, I know, it's ironic, isn't it? Did anyone check out the... So I collated a bunch of these loops songs and put them on a Bandcamp album for anyone who's interested in that. It's just John the Duncan and Bandcamp. Did anyone take a listen to that? It took about a day to put together, but I was quite pleased with it. Some of them are quite nice. Some of them are quite fun. I am sweating so much. It is gross. Ooh. Oh, that's what I was going to talk about a bit, wasn't it? I'm going to talk about the Adam ruins everything, or the G word. So this is my next video. Coming out. It'll be coming out probably not next week, but the week after. The script is written, but there's something surprising and quite interesting came up with it. So, and that's not going to be resolved until next week. So I'm quite excited about this video on the fucking G Word show, Adam Conover's Netflix G Word show. But basically that. I've not put the script up on Patreon yet because it's, I want it to be a surprise when it comes out. And I'm quite excited about it. But basically that video is going to be an examination of... Right, because I can't just write a video. I can't just write a video that's me getting mad at a show. As an examination of the state under capitalism, and what the state is. Because obviously the G word is the government, and the government used in that show is unclear as to what that means. But I've essentially taken that to mean the state. Has anyone watched that show on Netflix? How do I think class consciousness figures into organising efforts? Do you think it's praxiomatically sound for the working class to ally ourselves with members of, say, the petty bourgeois who have working class conscience? Sorry, for Steph. Sorry. I don't think We're in Hell did a video on it. Maybe he did. I didn't see it. Do I think we should ally ourselves with the petty bourgeois? I mean, I am always critical of small business owners, and the notion that small business ownership is a good thing, because you get a lot of that. You get a lot of that sort of left liberal spaces that, they're a small business owner, and we need to support them over big businesses. I don't think that's the case. So I guess if we're meaning petty bourgeois in the sense of people who own small businesses, I think that's something that you'd have to be careful about, whether they view themselves as working class or not. It would depend. I think that the question there is difficult, because I'm sure you could find people who own small businesses who consider themselves socialists, and who might be allies in that fight, but it's not something that I would say is a prime thing to organise around, except in maybe cases where these are people who are organising around community issues, like access to education or access to housing, maybe. Yeah, it depends. It's not a particularly convincing argument, but I can't give you a rule right now. I'm not that smart. I'm just a fucking dude, guys. I think the more pressing issue is when you get people who are in, say, what would be considered middle class occupations, service occupations, who don't necessarily own capital but are traditionally viewed of as more safe or more well paid jobs, and whether you can ally with them is maybe a more sort of productive question than with the petty bourgeois, as people who own small businesses. So I mean, this is less the case these days, but traditionally university lecturers is very much a middle class job. So computer scientists can be allied, but I wouldn't consider computer scientists, unless they are owners of small businesses, petty bourgeois. I would consider them petty bourgeois has a specific meaning, as in people who own degrees of capital. Someone who makes a middle class or upwards of middle class wage. I wouldn't necessarily consider petty bourgeois. I think that's a different question. I think you can certainly ally with people who make money, but don't necessarily own capital, because those are different logics which can be sort of interacted with differently, I think. I think computer scientists can very much be allied, 100%. And same, like, lots of fucking left-wing history as too much of left-wing history has come out of the academy and out of the university in very comfortable positions. And that's not just Marxist thought, but a lot of other left-wing thought as well. So clearly there are people who can be allied in these situations. Middle class versus owner of small capital. Yeah, exactly. So I guess that would be the distinction that I would make. I'd be much quicker to ally with a middle class than than a petty bourgeois. I can't handle this heat, it's true. I'm not even that drunk yet. I'm not even that drunk yet. I was gonna say I've just had about let's not focus on that. I mean, my self-employed is a different thing than petty bourgeois, I would say. The moment of employing someone is probably different than being like a freelance writer, or I guess someone like me who's, I guess I'm self-employed. I make my money doing this, which is, great. I like making my money doing this, but I don't think that you could reasonably describe me as petty bourgeois for making like £470 a month on this, but I'd likely be described as self-employed. I get Aidan Sullivan asking that question. Where do YouTubers fall? You don't own YouTube, but what if you own your camera? I mean, I wouldn't. You can quickly get into sort of moralisms of these questions. I wouldn't say that a YouTuber, even the richest YouTuber, falls on a petty bourgeois, because these platforms are not owned by us, and these are the prime means of production for us. We could have a camera, editing software, whatever, but without the platforms, we're fucked. That is the prime mode of production for us. But when you get to questions of people like Hassan who earn more money than I can even imagine, these class interests start to shift slightly. Like, cheers to, I'm fucking, rolling in it. Class is one of those things. So I'm not heard anything back from this. I pitched a piece to New Socialist magazine on the nature of class. And it's one of those things that people want to simplify the nature of class. Liberals want to simplify it to cultural signifiers or how much you earn. And that's obviously bullshit. But on the sort of more vulgar Marxist end of it, people want to simplify it to be like, just if you're a wage labourer, then you're working class. And that sort of stuff obscures the vast differences between, you know, someone who's earning £80,000 a year and someone who's earning £16,000 a year. Like, clearly there are different relations to capital and different class relations. So it's not something that is easy to disassemble quickly, class. And that's... Hey, welcome, Michelle. I'm glad that you're happy you managed to catch me rambling about class. You know, and that traditional sort of vulgar Marxist one doesn't account for differences in race and gender. As a housewife who doesn't work, fucking working class, of course she is. She's working in a different means than one that is really from the wage relationship. But yeah, it's a much more complex set of social relations than a lot of people are willing to talk about. And some of that is, you know, it's easy to propagate a simple solution, a simple sort of analytic category as well, but it's difficult to disentangle all that shit. If you, as you are now, could give advice to a theoretical version of yourself as successful as how could I say? I mean, I couldn't give myself, I can't imagine myself in a position like Hassan. A more sort of that's too far from me. A more reasonable sort of thing I could imagine is entering into academia. And the way that stay grounded is maybe not the way I'd put that, but why are you bullying me? What are you who's bullying me? You're bullying me to keep me grounded. Okay, yeah, sure. Sinan's my if I ever become Hassan, Sinan is my insurance policy. But I think the more realistic scenario is entering academia and becoming a lecturer. And in that case, the obvious thing that happens to a lot of people in academia is they become distant from the movements that they purport to represent or purport to study. And the obvious way to stay grounded in that sense is to remain part of those movements and to talk about yourself or your experience or your comrades' experiences within those movements. So I guess to remain grounded and to make sure that you're still fucking fighting for the movement is to actually be a part of the movement as much as you can be. And obviously that's more difficult for some people than some others, but if you're in a comfortable middle class position in a fucking university, which I would wish I had, I hope I have one day, but let's fucking see, remain part of the movement. That's probably the most fundamental thing. My contact lenses are failing a bit, so I might move my chat over to my bigger screen. It's a word that's thrown around widely, applies to most, but it's understood by few, maybe more folks. It's stronger working definition of the word. Unified diversity of the press. Yeah, I mean, the way I would see class would be necessary. Maybe shouldn't get into this at this moment. I mean, I've had people criticize me for viewing class for viewing too many different divisions as class, but fuck that. That's my analytical framework. I feel like I'm being called out. Tech workers' salaries are inflated as hell. I just feel like the position is very precarious. I don't think people should feel called out for that. There's nothing wrong. You're not personally morally wrong for earning a lot of money, as like a computer scientist or a tech worker. Like, that's not something you should feel morally bad about. Like, it's not your fault. And lots of people, like, you have to live your life. Like, being a tech worker is not a morally bad position to be in. Like, there are ways to live. We all have to fucking make a living. Like, I wouldn't feel bad about that at all. Don't worry about that. Oh man, if I had Hassan's money, I would have so much music equipment. I would have fucking synthesizers. I'd be spending so much of that on synthesizers. Unfortunately for us, without degrowth, it's impossible to beat the heat. You know, Savannah is right. That's true. Yeah, not to isolate yourself. Within a bubble. Yeah, that's true. Like, so many academics are totally distant from the movements that they talk about and that they purport to represent. And that's something that I am not going to let happen to myself. I think part of the problem with academia is it takes knowledge produced, particularly left-wing academia, it takes knowledge produced within movements and sort of commodifies it through the structures of the university. So that naturally makes you want to distance yourself from it, because you're making some sort of, essentially making a product out of praxis. But if you're involved in that praxis, then it keeps you at least grounded in the politics that you want to represent. David Graeber was a very good example of someone who did this. Famously involved in so many grassroots movements, was always there on protests and was always on the ground. And there are lots of good examples. Alana Lenton, another good example. People who do this. But too often the opposite happens. My supervisor does this as well. He's always marching, always working with groups as best he can from his position. As someone who finds Wittig's gender's class ideas fascinating, for classes like, yeah, am I going to talk about this? I'm going to have a think about when I'm going to talk about. So I've recently finished Gender Trouble, and I'm going to catch up with chat. And if I catch up with chat and there's nothing else to talk about, I might talk about Gender Trouble. If I had sand money, I'd buy swords. Yeah, that's a good plan. In my opinion, it depends how you make your money, depending on how much you make. I think I agree with that to an extent, but there is a stage when you make so much money that you are totally insulated from basically the world and the struggle that you have to make an effort to become involved in it. So there is an extent to which that quantity becomes qualitative. But I get what you're saying. I would buy synths if I had money to buy synths. Yeah, philanthropy is a bad fucking thing. Yeah, happy Pride Month, everyone. Looking forward to Pride in London this year. Hope we're all feeling Pride. Okay, so the reason that I'm hesitant to talk about Gender Trouble is because it's become such like a focus point of like people attacking the book or attacking Judith Butler and the notions that they sort of propagate in the book as a sort of way of doing transphobia. So so it always becomes difficult to critique something like that from the left, because you don't want to add into things like that. A lot of gender trouble I found challenging for several reasons. Some of it is because it's a difficult book to read. I mean, in the first instance, Gender Trouble is not a book which is aimed at a general public. It's not even really aimed at a general academic audience. It's aimed at an academic audience within a very specific field, which means so much of it is incredibly difficult to sort of parse. And it means that anything I say from here on is based on an interpretation of Gender Trouble, which I could only get through struggling through stuff that I likely didn't understand. So I think some of them. With that said, some of the major problems. I mean, some of the problems with the writing is I think it's maybe not that well written. I'm someone who's familiar with a lot of post-structuralist work. I'm in the academy. I do lots of work. A book like this should be somewhat more understandable to me, even if it's not wholly so, because it might be a different sort of. Not everything is wholly understandable to everyone. So I think that it's in some ways badly written. Another issue is I think in a general sense, I don't think it's post-structuralist in the sense, and I think that's the general problem with post-structuralism. What does Gender Trouble say about capitalism or racism? Not much, which is interesting. I'll get to that in a second. So reading Gender Trouble and reading post-structuralist work and reading structuralist work, and I don't consider myself a structuralist, but reading them both, post-structuralists level a critique of structuralism, which is not something that any structuralist thinks. It's this, they seem to have created this image of structuralism as being like the static thing, which isn't what any structuralist thinks, and it really lessens a lot of the weight of the critique, particularly in the sort of Wittig stuff, because that's not what structuralists think. So you're criticizing this sort of post-structuralist idea. Structuralism essentially is taking a social construction and understanding it from a position from the most sort of base logics of that. And there are various, that's a very simplified version, but that's basically what it is. And for people like Althusser, that is materialist structuralism. So they're looking at the sort of base materialist logics at play. And it seems like for Butler, that it's just an idealist, and I don't mean that necessarily derogatory. It's a linguistic idealist structuralism, where the production of gender is something that is structured on these logics, these sort of base logics of performativity. And that's one of the sort of things that I thought going through it. And I think one of the problems with the King of Beer, I don't mean idealist in the sense that, here's an ideal that I'm striving. I don't mean like utopian. I mean idealist as in, say, for example, one of the main things that Butler argues is essential to the construction of gender is linguistic performativity. And that exists not in the idea of materialism through say a division of labor between different genders, which for me the core idea that performativity produces gender. Here's a bunch of acts which are performed over time and coalesce around gender, producing a kind of gender. That idea in itself is one that I can take on board. It's one that makes sense within the social reproductive frame. Women, even within queer spaces, femme people take on this particular kind of labour which reproduces gender through the practice. Makes sense within a material sort of realm. But Butler spends a lot of time talking about it in an idealist sense through linguistics. So it's the language and the way that gender is talked about and gone through, which seems to produce and reproduce gender. And that's what I mean, that it exists within the sort of idealistic frame. And in that sense, it seems to be more of a more sort of idealist structuralism rather than a post-structuralism. Yeah, linguistics. I mean, this is one of those things. I'll read that full comment in a second, actually. So one of the problems with that is that it doesn't seem to be able, and this is a problem with post-structuralism in general. It doesn't seem to be able to account for why these gender performativities exist. It says that gender performativity benefits essentially heteropatriarchy, but it can't account for why heteropatriarchy exists, and it can't account for why these gender performances exist within that. It seems much more descriptive than analytical to me, which isn't necessarily bad in itself, because descriptivism is useful and all that. But that's sort of the impression that I came from. Hazel, you're saying, am I wrong here? Isn't the desire to smash binaries any mode of thought that central function aim at, and foundationalist approaches? So it's sort of quintessentially post-structuralist. So yeah, but binaries, I don't think binaries isn't something that structuralists really care about. Like there's a dialectic, maybe, but a dialectic isn't necessarily binary. Dialectics can exist within huge varieties and matrices of dialectics, and that it's not just like a binary of thing, and there's long traditions of Marxism. Welcome, Rousseau. So there's a very good essay in Transgender Marxism which talks about Butler and talks about these sort of issues, and rescues Butler in a sort of materialistic sense from some of these critiques that I leveled at it. But yeah, the thinking about being binary is not something that any structuralist would really think or would really argue for. It seems like an odd thing to level the critique at. And the linguistic stuff coming from Lacan is so this is a weird thing about the book, and I'm not sure how much some of this might be my misreading. It's hard sometimes to tell how much the book is critiquing and how much of it is using as a base, and how much is like a mixture of both. So for some of the stuff like where does the laws of gender come from, I'm inclined to think that the only justification for that stuff is in the psychoanalysts within Lacan and Freud, at which point you're like, well, this isn't that like I don't like psychoanalysts. I think it's bullshit, essentially. I don't really it's not an effect. It doesn't tell me anything to say that there's an essential sort of psychoanalytic thing at work, a law at work, that makes sense to me. And a lot of it remains, despite the claims within the book that it transcends a Eurocentric notion of epistemology, it doesn't ever seem to do that to me in any sort of it doesn't seem to do that to me at all. I see no evidence within that book that it transcends any sort of Eurocentric ideas of modernity, beyond post-structuralism, like in a sort of sense. And and this is going beyond the text slightly, but I kind of think that so the next book review I'm going to do is on Butler's book on pacifism, and I did a quick scan of that book for mentions of Fanon, because if you're going to do a book advocating pacifism from the left, the person that you have to engage with most is obviously Frantz Fanon, and his work on violence and violence as part of colonialism. And in that book, concerning violence and the wretched of the earth is cited once, but black skin, white masks is cited a lot of times, and that made me go, especially within the context of claiming that you're transcending a Eurocentric idea of modernity. Because if you're arguing for pacifism in a frame which, in my view, misuses and doesn't engage with Fanon in an adequate way, is a very way to go about it. It's the deconstructionists, post-structuralists are the same, who do all that stuff with the gap between sign and signifier that complicate. Yeah, there's the sign and signifier stuff is that's a kind of Althusserian sort of thinking, but again that's slightly out of my wheelhouse. I don't think dismantling binaries is even if you're talking not materially, if you're talking epistemologically, I don't think that dismantling binaries is inherently anti-structuralist or post-structuralist. It seems like a misreading of structuralism to me. Psychoanalysis is bullshit. Yeah, it's 100% bullshit. I mean, I don't mean to, Caitlin, I don't mean to suggest that there is nothing to gain from gender trouble, because I think there is. I think there's a whole lot of extremely valuable analysis in there, particularly in the first and the third chapters. There's a lot of useful stuff in there about gender performativity and about the construction of gender. But I think it's a limited book in how it goes about that, and I think part of the reason it is limited is because of this sort of because of the way it deals with materialism versus post-structuralism, and because of certain things like that within it. Like I was saying, a lot of the stuff on gender performativity makes sense within my sort of analytic framework that I use, the social reproductive theory framework. The notion of gender performativity, 100% consistent with that. There's a lot of other stuff there that I think needs questions. So this is why I don't necessarily. That's why I won't tweet about it, because there's a lot of room to take a critique which is appreciative but still critical, and read it as a admonishment of it entirely, and that's not what I want to do at all. I find it a struggle to get through because it is a difficult book, and it is a difficult book to get through, and it's not aimed at a general audience. But there is a lot to gain from it. I just have a lot of critiques. Even to how it happens, the shape of it can be useful. So absolutely, that is absolutely true. But I think within the book, that would need something. If I'm reading a book that's trying to disrupt the notion of gender, and I'm making reference to things, I either have to say understanding why this is the case is beyond the scope of the current work, or I have to put in an explanation of why this is the case. And neither happens within that work, really. Oh, that's the end of the wine. Right. End of the wine. I've somehow managed to fart my way through talking about fucking Judith Butler on stream with a bottle of wine down. I'm going to get a gin and tonic. I will be back in 2 minutes. We got the gin. Oh, fuck me, that's good. This is maybe not the best, most healthy stream, is it? Yeah, I think do. Yep, we're on the gin and tonic. Sorry, Hayes, I'm sorry I can't. Sorry, if I could pick one synth, God, I don't know. I don't know much about synths. It's not something I know about. My fantasy to buy one is utterly a fantasy. It's beyond any sort of ability to even research them. Sorry, I'm not satisfied the class discussion. Hazel, I don't hate you. I appreciate it. I mean, for me, that any discussion of unsurprisingly, the book, the Tithi Bhattacharya book from Pluto Press on social reproduction theory, which is called, wait 1 second, I have it here. It's called Remapping Class and Recentering Oppression. Very good book for understanding the nature of class and the nature of class within the capitalist world, and very good at recentering it along wage that aren't strictly the wage relationship, but which is produced via material divisions in labour and between various different things, between gender, race. Doesn't adequately deal with disability, and that is a case within a lot of social reproductive theory, which needs to be rectified. What's the book? The other social reproduction book is which is very good. Oh, 1 second, I'll just Google it. It does have some very useful stuff on both transphobia and disability within the field of social reproduction. Not adequate, but at least it's dealing with it, which is also useful for understanding class within those dimensions. This is available in Pluto Press, and if you use Duncan50 in the Pluto Press, you get 50% off. I get no money for that, I just get cheap books. Yeah, let me try and find the name of that other social reproduction book. Social reproduction and socialist horizons, it might be called. Yeah, social reproduction and socialist horizons by Aaron Jaff is a very good book for that as well. These are the ones that I will draw my sort of understanding of class from, which I think are better than the some of the more vulgar Marxist ones. Part of the reason why I can't give a fully satisfactory answer to the question about the nature of class and class consciousness is I've not written the piece that I've pitched yet. So I've pitched an idea and I've not written it yet. Maybe when I write it I'll have a better answer. Gin and tonic was such a good idea. I dropped the phrase sugar zaddy for the first time, and it netted me 7 books, but what? I'll put the book in chat. The two books that I was holding, I'll put that in chat just so you can sort of easily Google them. So the chapter from this on fucking Judith Butler again. The chapter on this on sexuality. What's the chapter called? Body politics and sexuality. Was reading that after I'd finished along with transgender Marxism after I'd finished Gender Trouble, and just reading sections of that fucking clarified a whole chapter of my PhD. It's such a good book. Like, if there's any book that has singularly been transformative in my politics and the type of analysis that I engage in, it's this book. It's really good. If you like the video on neoliberal feminism, or if you like the video where I'm making chili, I saw someone talk about that earlier. This book, instrumental in both of those videos. I've never read Nietzsche. If Russo is still here, Russo, you've read Nietzsche, haven't you? Fucking yeah, I'm not gonna. I'm sure there's stuff to get from Nietzsche. I can't be bothered. Capitalist Realism. I read that book and I didn't think it was very good. And I think part of the reason why, like, so many people, I think there's people maybe in their early 30s at this point. A few years ago, I would have said late 20s, but at this point, early 30s, view Capitalist Realism as a sort of standout book in, viewing, left-wing politics, and like, oh, we didn't have anything like this when we were young. By the time I read it in like 2019, 2019, and it was like fine. It was nothing special. I didn't really get what the fuss was about. I mean, I'm sure some people, lots of people seem to like him, so I'm sure there's more to it. I don't get it. I don't get why people are so into what's his face who wrote Capital Realism. The title, Martin, what was the title that you were looking for? The title I put above was the two books there were Social Reproduction Theory, and that is Tithi Bhattacharya. Both of them are social reproduction theory. Both are available on Pluto Press. Again, you can get 50% off with the discount code Duncan50. One is Tithi Bhattacharya's Social Reproductive Theory, which is Remapping Class, Recentering Oppression. The other one is Aaron Jaff's, which is Social Reproduction Theory, Socialist Horizons. Both are excellent. Teach you how to make chili? I mean, yeah. Did I teach you how to make chili in that video? I think I just made chili in that video. I mean, you can. Shall we do another track? Let's do another track. Let's see what other track. The one you were holding up was one of those. Yes, it was. The one I was holding up was Tithi Bhattacharya's Social Reproduction Theory, Remapping Class, Recentering Oppression. It's an edited volume, so it's got a whole bunch of different folk. The essays are all of them are good. It's like different essays within the book David McNally's one on a social reproductive critique of intersectionality is very good, and the one I just read on the body politic and the social reproduction of sexualities is also very good. Right, let's do another track. Not feeling it.
you, Fairy Rat.
That'll do for now. This track probably won't last as long as the other ones, because I'll do something more upbeat in a second. Oh, loop pedals are so fun, Caitlin. You should definitely get one if you can. What's going on? Yeah, I'm glad we've got some chill vibes in the going. Yeah, the heat wave. This is why we're here. The heat wave. Hey, Ibrahim, what's going on with me? I'm a rebel, of course, yeah. People always associate me with being rebellious, of course. I am very much enjoying this gin and tonic. Oh, you know what's something fun got going on this weekend? So my mum got me tickets for the Rolling Stones this weekend. So this weekend, my mum and my dad both coming down to see me and my sister and my mum and dad are gonna see the Rolling Stones. So that's exciting. Gonna see some guys almost in their 80s play some music and fling themselves about on the stage. Yeah, well, Charlie Watts is dead, which is a shame because he was a very good drummer. Yeah, you got to see those octogenarians, and I'll be there with some septuagenarians. Well, one septuagenarian. My mum is not 70 yet, but my dad, he is. That's gonna be fun. Today has not been too bad. Today I think it got to like 25 or so, which is still too much for me. But the other, like, last week it was like, earlier this week it was like 34, 35 degrees, which is unacceptable. It's just simply unacceptable. My capacity for fun. You know, we have to try and eke out the moments of fun that we can. I actually do think that's a serious thing to talk about. Is like, oh, sorry about that noise. My mic stand is bad. 97. That doesn't sound good. One of the I've talked about this on stream before, but one of the reasons why I do this isn't. Part of it is because it's fun for me. I like drinking and playing guitar on stream. It's fun for me. But also, this channel, and I talk about stuff that is so bad, like some of the worst stuff, all the time. And we have to keep our capacity for fun. And that's one of the, like, people complain about, like, Extinction Rebellion for some legitimate reasons a lot of the time. But when people are having fun at protests, I think more power to them, because we need to be able to have some fucking fun when we're facing down the fucking apocalypse. Like, we need to have some fun. Fairy Rat, that sounds like a good plan. Extinction Rebellion did NFTs? I did not know about that. Fuck me, man. Yeah, I think I reckon. Correct me if this is wrong. Simply do not do NFTs. Sinan is correct there. That's bad. Fuck me. That's bad. World is ending, but we can still dance. I appreciate that. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but the impression that I feel like I put out in the video content, not the stream content, but the video content, is that I am a very serious person who talks about serious things a lot, the worst things. But I am not a serious person. I'm a dipshit, and I do dipshit things, and these streams are part of that. If I can't dance to it, that's not my revelation. Emma Goldman, you may have been a fucking ableist piece of shit, but you could string a sentence together. Sanan, thank you. Thank you for that. Sanan, I we need to if you ever have time, I that is fair enough. That is fair enough. Most of my first impression is probably Chicken Run content. I do forget about Chicken Run a lot. I do forget that the Chicken Run content is there. I generally just, because the volume of the content is generally like, here is all the ways that we're dying, and you know, it's a fucking joke that it's neoliberalism and genocide on this channel. Uh yeah, no, I forget about Chicken Run. Sanam, I am missing Ego Fantastique. We need to get some fucking more of that D&D on the go. I'm gonna make a more dancey track. Sorry, not feeling that one. We're gonna do something better. Foucault does look like a hairless dog, Brown. It's true. 100% true. There's no denying that. Sorry, this has taken longer than I thought. I want to find something nice. I feel like this will be the last track of the night, and I want to feel. I want it to. I need to vibe with it. I'll catch up with chat in a second. think that's a good last track. It's not as dancey as I want. I'm not feeling it in my bones like I want to, but it's a good nice. I've been away from chat for long enough. How are we all getting on? Welcome, innocent fugitive. It's always a pleasure. Yeah, I'm sure there were shirt comments. Fairy Rat. It's a good shirt. I like this shirt. Like I said earlier, it's probably it'll be the shirt I wear to Pride. It's got a groove to it. It's not the grooviest. It needs some more sort of drive to it, I think. But it's got something to it. See, we've been through this, innocent fugitive, on the stream. This is my sluttiest shirt. It literally does not button any higher than this. This is the highest button it's got. I am structurally inhibited from being less slutty with this shirt. This is as far as it goes. Oh, we all support guys being a bit revealing on stream, eh? Sometimes I should not say things. How are we all doing? I think we'll give the stream until the end of this drink and then call it night. 'Cause it's been a while. It's fucking flown by. It's been a nice stream. I think we've beaten the heat, despite the fact that we lost the heat. Lost the heat briefly at the beginning. It's good as not quite there. You know what? Every song is missing a synth. That's just what it is. Looking respectfully, thank you. As long as you continue to respect me. It's missing different instruments. We'll get there one day. Discussing structuralism of the exactly the underlying logic of the sexy shirt. Yeah, synth pads would fill it out. Was there anything else I wanted to talk about tonight? What else was it? What was on my mind today? All that was on my mind today was, oh, I love this chat. I genuinely, to be soppy for a second, I'm genuinely extremely happy with the kind of vibe that we have here. So many YouTubers have bad chats that are combative and can descend quite easily. I'm extremely happy with the kind of chat that we have here. Everyone is extremely kind to each other. We're all just vibing. We know the world is shit, and we're trying to make it better, and we're trying to do it together. I genuinely am very pleased with the type of community we have here. Demand cat. Will I get the cat? We can get the cat in. I'll grab some cat for the last bit of stream. He was asleep, so I have just woken him up to say hi. He's a bit tired. I kind of feel bad for him. You poor beast. Oh. Look how tired he is. Oh. Oh, that poor animal. I'm sorry, Puss. Yeah. He is purring. He is purring because he likes the attention. He's a wee attention seeker. But he is tired. Mic down for the purrs. Let's see if we can hear him. All right, I'll let him get some sleep because he's a bit tired. Hello. Oh, that's very cute. He shouldn't let me sort of handle him like this. It's very weird. He just lets you sort of move him about the place. Hello. Oh. Okay. You're so weird. Yeah, he's a fucking weirdo. He's tired today. I think the heat gets to him. The same way as it gets to me. But he is the most fucking placid animal. Like, he's a dick sometimes. He'll like fight you and square up to me. It's like, I can easily beat you in a fight. You're a cat and I'm a full man. But he, like, if you pick him up, he just lets you do shit that cats shouldn't. Like, there's no reason that a cat should let... I make him type. I make him dance. Cats shouldn't let you do that stuff. And he's just like, yeah, dog, it's fine. He's a fucking strange animal. He's a very dog-like cat as well. Like, he runs up to you and, like, you can pat his belly. He rolls on his back and sleeps on his back, so you can pat his belly, and he likes that. Very, very strange animal. I mean, part of it might be that he's grown up with me, and I'm very, myself, dog-like in the pure excitedness of just seeing him. That might be part of it. That's I'm
I'm glad that you get stuff from the videos, Caitlin. I'm glad that you get stuff from the videos. That's all I can say to that. It's not a good place to be in. Yeah, he's a weird cat. All right, I'll do this the last call for any questions or comments or any sort of conversation topics, because we're at the bottom of the glass of gin. You're welcome, Caitlin. I appreciate that. Something I've changed my mind about recently. Well, I'll say my favorite film is an easier one at this point. So, streams are every other week. Yeah, streams are every. I try to get them to be every second Thursday. So that doesn't. It's not as regular as that because life gets in the way, but I try to make them every second Thursday. So the next one would be in 2 weeks, unless like a video comes out on the same day. Favorite film, I mean there's a lot. I will say the favorite film I've seen so this year has been Everything Everywhere All at Once, and that is a strong contender for favourite film ever. I think I need to watch it more times because I've only seen it once and it was so fucking good. Like I was in tears for like 40 minutes of that. Something I've changed my mind about recently is a difficult one, because I don't tend to like do like a heel turn changing my mind on things. It tends to be like how do various frameworks or things like, I don't know. I can't think of anything I've necessarily changed my mind on recently. Yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis was fucking brilliant in that film. Yeah, like new perspectives on things. I mean, like the this is less like a changing my mind and more of a moment which was easy to consolidate and understand my thoughts from, was when I was reading that social reproduction book on gender, and I managed to understand the point of one of the chapters of my thesis much better from reading this book, and that was just last week. That's the closest I can get to something I've changed my mind on. Yeah, I'm sorry that they're less regular. I try to make them every second Thursday, but I have a life too, and it sometimes gets in the way. Did you mention somewhere that some Marxists don't like Foucault? If that was you, what was that? I mean, Foucault, yeah, lots of Marxists don't like Foucault. Foucault, I mean, it depends how you read Foucault, and it depends on which period of Foucault you're reading. Because, I mean, it gets to a lot. It's a criticism I got in a recent meeting I had with a couple of examiners about my work, is that it could tend towards a more idealistic, as in something that is, as in the social world moves through ideas rather than material facts. People criticise me for being too Foucauldian, and that my work might be too idealistic in that sense. But yeah, depends on which period of Foucault. Like the Foucault of Discipline and Punish essentially takes a Marxist background and works within a different level of abstraction. It works within a different realm, and essentially can easily be read as Marxist. It becomes more difficult with things like the biopolitics
So a good Marxist critique of something like biopolitics is from someone like Federici, who argues that biopolitics is too abstracted from the material realm, where Foucault's biopolitics would say that governments arrange populations by their ability to live by life-making means, but that's abstracted from the gritty reproductive labour of reproducing labour power. Like, Foucault doesn't necessarily mention that, so there's a lot of critique in that sort of sense. Text you when you go on. I mean, I put it when I'm going live. I put it on Twitter about 8 hours before Twitter and YouTube and Discord. I always put it on all three of them like 8 hours before I go live. I do my best. So I mean, so the material realm would be so, for example, what drives history would be something like, in a Marxist realm, very simply put, probably too simply put, is who controls production and reproduction, as in who produces the goods that people consume. Within feudalism, that would be farming fields. You know, who controls the realm of farming, producing food, and all that to maintain the survival of the system. Under capitalism, it's who produces the commodities which generate capital. That's who reproduces the prime commodity, which is labor power, which then produces the commodities. And these are the sort of things that are interacting and reproduced. The material versus, I mean, at this point, I'm probably too drunk to get into a deep conversation about the material versus the like idealistic, because it's a lot more complicated than that very brief sketch, but that's sort of the essential component of it. I like a strawberry. Fair enough. And with that easy question, I think we will call that a day. Because I think that's been a good stream. Hazel, you're all good. Don't worry, like, I appreciate talking about all this stuff. My only worry is giving out information that is not good. That's my worry is not about you asking questions, it's about me giving bad information to you, which I don't want to do. So as long as you are happy with that, that's all I care about. I used to not like blueberries, but I like them more these days. I like a blueberry muffin as well. You know what's a very cute thing my mum does is when we're out walking with our dog in the summer up in Scotland, if I'm up in Scotland and we're walking the dog, round where we live there's lots of raspberry and blackberry bushes, and she will call the dog up to her and say, Lucy, dog's called Lucy. Lucy, do you want a sweetie? And Lucy will come running up to her and sit down, and Mum will pick off a blackberry off the bush and give it to Lucy, and the dog absolutely adores it. Alright, and with that cute story, we'll call it a day. Thanks for joining us. Been another good stream. Always appreciate y'all. Cheers.